You know, and as Keith just said, there's another 5,000 in the other room. First of all, let me thank Farhia and Isaac for their great introductions. And Minnesota, thank you for sending Keith Ellison to the Congress. And let me begin by just picking up on what Keith just said. Yes, this is an election for the presidency of the United States, and I am here to ask for your support. But what Keith just said is terribly important. And what he said, which is true, is that no president, not Bernie Sanders or anyone else, can effectively address the crises facing our country unless there is a political revolution. And here is the truth that no other candidate for president will tell you. And that is that the powers that be, Wall Street, which has endless supplies of money and political power, corporate America, whose greed is destroying our economy, the corporate media that decides to tell us what is important and what is not important, the Koch brothers and the other billionaires. These people have so much political power, so much economic power, that the only way we take them on and defeat them is when we come together and demand that the United States government represent all of us and not just a handful of billionaires. Everybody here tonight understands that real change never takes place from the top down. Real change always takes place from the grassroots on up. Whether it was the civil rights movement, or the trade union movement, or the women's movement, or the gay movement. The way that change takes place is when millions of people say the status quo is no longer good enough. We will not accept racism and segregation. We will not accept women being treated as second-class citizens. We will not accept discrimination against our gay brothers and sisters. And when people say the status quo isn't working, that's when we make the changes that transform our country, and that's where we are right now. Today in America, we have a rigged economy. We have a corrupt campaign finance system. And we have a broken criminal justice system. Now, it's not going to be easy, but I believe when the American people stand up, when they don't allow the Trumps of the world to divide us up, when black and white and Latino, Asian American, when we stand together, when gay and straight and men and women stand together. When people born in this country and who have come to this country stand together. There is nothing we cannot accomplish. Now, our campaign has the energy. You see it here tonight. Our campaign has the momentum because people are sick and tired of establishment politics and establishment economics. People are sick and tired of working longer hours for lower wages and they're tired of having to work 2 or 3 jobs in order to bring in enough income. And they are very tired of seeing almost all new income and wealth going to the top 1%. And the American people are saying very loudly and clearly that we have got to create an economy that works for all of us, not just the 1%. Brothers and sisters, it is not acceptable that in America today, the top 1/10 of 1% owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. It is not acceptable that the 20 wealthiest people in this country own more wealth than the bottom 50% of the American people. And it is surely not acceptable that one family, the Walton family of Walmart, owns more wealth alone than the bottom 40% of the American people. You know, we have heard a lot from our Republican colleagues there about welfare abuse. You ever hear about welfare abuse, welfare cheats? Do you know who the major recipient of welfare is in America? It is the Walton family of Walmarts. Turns out that the wealthiest family in America receives more welfare than anybody else. And you know why? Because the workers in Walmart, many of the workers in Walmart, are forced to go on Medicaid, food stamps, subsidized housing, because the Waltons are not paying them a living wage. So I say to the Walton family, get off of welfare, pay your workers a living wage. Brothers and sisters, it is not acceptable that millions of people in this country continue to work for starvation wages. It is not acceptable that we continue to have a minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. Together, we are going to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, $15 an hour. It is not a radical idea to say that if somebody works 40 hours a week in this country, that person should not be living in poverty. And I would hope I would hope that every man in this room stands with the women in the fight for pay equity for women workers. It is not acceptable in the year 2016 that women earn 79 cents on the dollar compared to men. That's old-fashioned sexism. We are going to change that. The official unemployment statistics that you read about every month tell you that officially unemployment is 5%. What they forget to tell you is that real unemployment, including those given up looking for work and are working part-time, is close to 10%. And they surely do not tell you that youth unemployment is 33% for white kids, 36% for Latino kids, 51% for African American kids. And they do not tell you the correlation between high youth unemployment and the fact that we have more people in jail than any other country on earth. This is the wealthiest country in the history of the world. We should not have 2.2 million people in jail. So are you ready for a radical idea? We're going to invest in education and jobs for our kids. Not more jails and incarceration. And when we talk about what's going on in this country, pretty soon here in Minnesota, you're going to see a lot of Republicans tromping through your state. And they're going to be talking about family values, how much they love families. But all of you know what they mean by family values. What they are saying is that no woman in this room tonight, in this state, in this country, should have the right to control her own body. We disagree. What they are saying is that the Congress should defund Planned Parenthood. We believe we should expand funding for Planned Parenthood. What Republican family values is about is telling our gay brothers and sisters they can't get married. We disagree. Now, Jane and I have been married for 27 years. We have 4 great kids and 7 beautiful grandchildren. We believe in family. But our family values are a little bit different than the Republicans. When I talk about family values, I am talking about ending the international disgrace of the United States of America being the only country on earth that does not guarantee paid family and medical leave. It is not acceptable to me or to you that when a low-income woman has a baby today, she will be forced to go back to work, separate herself from her newborn baby in a week or 2 weeks. That is not a family value. That is why together we are going to have paid family and medical leaves 3 months for every family in America. And when we talk about the economy, it's not just high youth unemployment. We got millions and millions of people who are looking for work. And you know what? There is a lot of work that needs to be done. We should be hiring teachers, not firing teachers. With a child care pre-K system which is dysfunctional, where millions of working families cannot find quality, affordable child care, we should be hiring hundreds of thousands of well-paid, well-trained child care workers to take care of the little ones. Brothers and sisters, in the United States, we used to have the best infrastructure in the world, the best. Today, our roads and our bridges, our water systems, wastewater plants, just take a look at Flint, Michigan, our airports, our levees, our dams in many parts of this country are collapsing, and I know you had that experience right here with the bridge in Minneapolis. We can put 13 million people back to work with a $1 trillion investment in rebuilding our infrastructure. Let's do it. But it is not just creating new jobs that we have to do. We have got to prevent the loss of millions of jobs because of disastrous trade policies. You are looking at a former congressman and a United States senator who voted against NAFTA, CAFTA, PNTR with China. And who is going to lead the effort to defeat the TPP. Corporate America and Wall Street wrote the trade agreements. Their purpose was very clear. Why do we have to pay, they say, workers in Minnesota $20-25 an hour when we can go to a low-wage country, pay people pennies an hour, and bring the product back into America? I say to corporate America, those days are going to end. If you want us to buy your products, you're going to start manufacturing those products in Minnesota, Vermont, and America. I want to tell you briefly a story which encompasses much of what is wrong with our current political system. Some of you may have noticed that a week or so ago, Goldman Sachs, one of the major financial institutions in this country, agreed to pay a $5 billion fine to the federal government. They agreed to a $5 billion settlement because they were defrauding the American people and investors, selling subprime mortgage packages that were worthless. The CEO of Goldman Sachs a few years ago, and he is a billionaire, and this is what politics and power is about, came to the Congress. And he said, yeah, I'm a billionaire. I have an incredible pension program for myself, but I want you, Congress, to cut Social Security, cut Medicare, and cut Medicaid. Goldman Sachs is involved in the revolving door of politics in America. In the last 20, 25 years, 2 secretaries of the Treasury, one in a Democratic administration, one in a Republican administration, came directly from Goldman Sachs, as did dozens of other high-ranking public officials. And here is the rub. Some kid in Minneapolis gets arrested tonight for possessing marijuana. That kid gets a police record. But the top executives on Wall Street, whose greed and illegal behavior brought this economy into the worst recession since the 1930s, millions of people lost their homes, lost their life savings, lost their jobs. These guys get no criminal record at all. We are going to create a criminal justice system where justice is equal. And by the way, Congress bailed out Wall Street because the big banks were too big to fail. Today, 3 out of the 4 largest banks are bigger than they were when we bailed them out because they were too big to fail. In my view, it is absolutely time to reestablish a modern-day Glass-Steagall legislation and even more importantly, when you have a handful of financial institutions with incredible wealth, with incredible political power, it is time to break them up. I am the former chairman of the U.S. Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs. And in that regard, I did my very best to make sure that our veterans had the health care and the other benefits that they have earned. And in that capacity, I have the opportunity, the privilege of meeting with some extraordinary people, people who put their lives on the line to defend American democracy, going all the way back to World War II. And today I look at what's going on in terms of the state of democracy in this country now. What you have is a result of this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision by a 5-4 decision. What the Supreme Court said to the wealthiest people in this country, they said, guys, you already own much of the economy. We are now going to give you the opportunity to purchase the United States government, and that is what they are trying to do as we speak. I am very proud to tell you that I am the only candidate running for the Democratic nomination who does not have a super PAC. I am proud to tell you, and to me this is incredible, that since we began this campaign, we have received 2.5 million individual campaign contributions. That is more individual contributions than any campaign in the history of the country up until this point in a campaign. We are going to win this election without a super PAC. And without funding from millionaires and billionaires. But I'll tell you something else we are going to do together. We are going to restore democracy to this country. We are going to overturn Citizens United. And here is a promise I make to all of you. No nominee of mine to the U.S. Supreme Court will get that nomination unless he or she is crystal clear in telling the American people they will vote to overturn Citizens United. Our job as a people is to have the highest voter turnout in the world, not one of the lowest voter turnouts. And as president, we will take on those Republican governors and legislatures who are trying to suppress the vote, trying to deny African Americans, poor people, old people, the right to participate in American democracy. And not only are we going to overturn Citizens United, we're going to move forward toward public funding of elections so anyone can run for office. Everybody here tonight understands that if our country is going to be successful, we need to have the best educated workforce in the world. The truth is, there was once a time we did. The truth is, today we don't. It is beyond my comprehension that today hundreds of thousands of bright, qualified young people who have the ability to go to college, who want to go to college, are unable to go to college because their families lack the money. That's wrong. And that is why I believe that when we talk about public education in the year 2016, what we are talking about is making public colleges and universities tuition free. I want every kid in the 4th grade or in the 6th grade, kids whose mom and dad, like my mom and dad, never went to college, kids who come from working class families like my family, kids who may not know anybody who went to college. I want those children, I want their teachers, I want their parents to know that if those kids take school seriously, they will, in fact, be able to get a higher education regardless of the income of the family. And I want other kids who may not be academically inclined, may not want to go to college, I want them to get the training they need to become carpenters and plumbers and sheet metal workers and get good jobs that are out there. And together we are going to deal with another higher education fiasco, and that is the fact that millions of people in this country, some young, some not so young, are struggling under the oppressive burden of student debt. Anybody here dealing with student debt? Now, take a deep breath and just think about this. Think about it for a moment. Our job as a nation, as human beings, is to encourage people to get as much education as they can. That's what being a human being is about. That's what having a strong economy is about. Why is it, in God's name, why are we punishing millions of people because they chose to get an education? That makes no sense. I have been all over this country and I have heard horrendous tales. I was in Iowa a couple of weeks ago, a guy 29 years of age, married, 2 kids. He's working in sustainable energy, not making a lot of money. He is paying 53% of his income, paying back his student debt. Talk to a woman in Burlington, Vermont. Her dream was to become a doctor, to work with low-income people, exactly the kinds of doctors that we need. Her punishment for becoming a doctor, serving low-income people, $300,000 in debt. We are in desperate need of dentists. We have a major dental crisis in America. Saw a woman in Des Moines, Iowa, went to dental school, graduated, $400,000 in debt. Talked to a guy in Nevada, 55 years of age. He's been paying off his student debt for 25 years. He's more in debt today than he was when he took the debt out in the first place. Together, we are going to address this issue. It is absurd that we have people with student debt paying 6, 8, 10% interest rates on that debt when you can refinance your home for 3 or 4%. People should be able to refinance their debt at the lowest interest rates they can find. And that's what we're going to do. Now, my critics, of which there are many, say, well, you know, that sounds like a nice idea. You're going to propose free tuition at public colleges and universities. You're going to substantially lower student debt. That's an expensive proposition, and they're right, it is. It's about $70 billion a year. How are we going to pay for it? I will tell you how. We're going to impose a tax on Wall Street speculation. When Wall Street's greed helped destroy our economy, the middle class bailed out Wall Street. Now it is Wall Street's time to help the middle class. Brothers and sisters, as adults, as parents, as grandparents, we have a moral responsibility to leave this planet to our children and grandchildren in a way that is healthy and is habitable. I am a member of the Senate Environmental Committee and the Senate Energy Committee. I have personally spoken to scientists all over our country and all over the world. The debate is over. Climate change is real. Climate change is caused by human activity and is already in our country and around the world doing devastating harm. Now, what the scientists also tell us is if we do not get our act together in the very near future, if we do not transform our energy system away from fossil fuel, this planet, our only planet, could be between 5 and 10 degrees warmer by the end of this century, which is cataclysmic. That means more floods, more drought, more extreme weather disturbances, more acidification of the ocean, and we are already destroying ocean life. It means we're rising sea levels and the flooding of coastal areas, and it also means more international conflict as people fight over limited natural resources. We have a moral responsibility to work with countries all over the world, China, Russia, other countries, to make sure that we transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. And let me connect the dots right here. Let me connect the dots right here. Why is it, do you think, that Republicans are refusing to acknowledge the